I'm Dave from Jaunt, and this is Juniper, our 1971 Land Rover that we're turning into an electric vehicle. There's two parts to that. One is pulling everything out, and then part two is putting all the electric stuff back in. That is a gross simplification. So we bought this in Gladstone, Queensland, which is about 3,000 kilometres away from where we are in Coburg in Melbourne. When you buy a car on the other end of the country, you're going on photos, you're chatting with the seller, you're very optimistic, you're excited about the car. For us, we flew up to Gladstone with a bag of tools and a bag of camping gear, go and inspect this vehicle, and of course we want it to be perfect. We want it to be great. It is our only transport home. We have really no other option. And of course it was exactly as described. But as described, when it's a nearly 50-year-old car, doesn't mean that it's in perfect condition. There was a number of things that caught us out driving those thousands of Ks on freeways and through Sydney in rush hour and all these ridiculous things. We have started to pull it apart a little bit. That has been to check things, to see the condition of the vehicle. So we're actually in the middle of putting it back together to get weighed and understand the weight on each axle. It's a critical thing in an EV conversion because you're drastically changing what the heavy objects in the car are and where they are. This part here, this brake booster, was the cause of our scariest moments on the drive back from Queensland. It didn't work, basically. I think that the diaphragm is old and worn out and leaking, basically. It's trying to create vacuum pressure to help push the fluid and compress the fluid and assist you when you push the pedal. And it does that by creating pressure from getting this vacuum pressure from out of the exhaust manifold. Brake fluid runs in one of these lines and out the other, but up between that it's got some extra compression. When that doesn't work, it means that your first push of the brakes is nothing. There is no pressure left, so it's push, you have nothing. And then you got to push a few more times and eventually you get pressure again, but you're getting unassisted pressure, so it's basically just like the brakes are stock standard. This is an aftermarket part on these Land Rovers, so on Series 2 Land Rovers. This too is something that has to change when we do an electric conversion, because this is getting vacuum pressure, and obviously we would change this old part, but this is getting vacuum pressure off the exhaust manifold. There is no exhaust manifold, so there's no gases, there's no way to run these things, so you either need to install an electric pump, or potentially what we do, depending on the strength and the feeling of the regenerative braking that we'll have, is we just keep it original. So we keep the unassisted braking, and really the only time you need to push the brake pedal is when you're coming to a dead stop or wanting to stop very quickly. So the fact that will be a heavy brake pedal may not be a problem. Depends how heavy, and obviously we've got to just test with all kinds of people to see what that feels like, because it does feel very different to a modern brake pedal. One of the concerns that we had, and one of the little rattles that we were constantly worried about, is this. And this here, this cable, you can see this rod goes across there, that connects to the throttle pedal in the car, and also the little hand throttle. You push that and it pulls back on this thing, which pulls this, which pushes down on this, which then is the throttle and lets more air and fuel into the engine. So this bit that connects essentially is the last point of connection from your pedal to the engine. It easily falls off. So it's got these little ball joints, and it's got these little clips, and they should wrap around and spring and wrap around the thing, but obviously the metal loses its spring after 50 years. And this piece just vibrated loose. And you can see that it kind of looks in colour, almost exactly the same as gum leaves. And when you're driving on, you know, in the bush in Australia, that's what the colour of the ground is. So it was a little bit of a stressful search, but we were methodical and we found it. I mean, there's probably a way we could have connected these two things, obviously in a bush mechanic way, but we didn't want to lose it again. So our unbreakable and unbeatable solution is 2 zip ties, which don't necessarily hold it in position, but do give us a backup plan if we do notice that we're driving along and we have no throttle anymore. That it'll just be hanging here and it's ready to go right back on. So this is the aftermarket, much aftermarket air filter, Caliber brand. That's a sort of fairly common mod. Usually this would have, originally out of the factory, this would have had a tube running from here, a hose connecting to the original air filter, like an oil bath air filter, a big thing here. Those were kind of difficult to service and unusual, bit misunderstood. So really common just to put one of these things and just make up a bit of hose and put one of these sort of air filters on that you could get from anywhere. What happens though to us is that when you're running this, you're driving this for a few hours in summer on the freeway, it's getting pretty warm. When you stop, say, like happened to us, you come into a petrol station, you stop, you fill up, you go to start again, and the engine has been so hot that all the fuel in the system here has vaporized and just basically disappeared. So you go to accelerate, and it's not in the lines, it can't pull through. There's no pressure to help it pull through, and you're just sucking in air and nothing else. There's nothing to burn. So as we were taught by a friendly local guy who came up to help us when he realized what was going on, was that, you just got to create a bit of pressure. You take this off, you put your hand over here, you start the car, you feel it suck, and that sucks the fuel through, and you're working again. So it's similar in a way. We found that for the most part, we could actually deal with that problem by just pulling out the choke a bit more and restricting, choking the airflow a bit. And that basically had the same effect. So instead of it being the choke being used for when it was too cold, we were needing it when it was way too hot. So I was reading this Land Rover restoration manual, and it goes through all the changes, and it's going through each series, Series 1, Series 2, and all the little modifications in between. And I get to the bit about the grille. So on this car, it had this metal grille. Sits in these 2 sort of little supports down the bottom there. Has 2 screws, just flathead screws that bolt through the Land Rover pressed metal badge or cast metal badge. And when you look at it, it's kind of like it's dirty in a weird way, like in a way that kind of looks like it's been used as a barbecue, which is not what you think about when you think about parts of your car. So it could have just been hot from the engine. But then I read, and they're talking about the introduction of the Series 3, so the model after this. The front end of a Series 3, complete with plastic radiator grille, introduced in late 1971, like 6 months after this. Also new a synchro mesh gearbox, plastic dashboard, heater arrangement, diaphragm clutch. But the fun bit is, this being a British book, rumour has it that many Australians disliked this model because they couldn't remove the radiator grille and cook their steaks over it like they'd been used to with previous models. which is amazing because this has been used as a barbecue at some point. And we were very tempted to do this when we were traveling, but because without reading this and without knowing it, because we're like looking at this, we had no camping gear, we had what we'd flown with, which wasn't much, and we're like, we could use the front of this car, this would work as a grill, but we're like, oh, well, what is that residue? Is that deadly poison? There's definitely an element of deadly poison on this grill, but we just thought, oh yeah, that would make sense. Turns out, we were thinking like many Australians before us and wanting to use this as a barbecue grill. So that's the end of episode 1. Next time I'll take Juniper on a final drive with the petrol engine and talk through what that driving experience is like. Let me know what you guys want me to focus on in future episodes as we pull her apart and start the conversion. Thanks.
Give us this day.